Hello, everybody. Hello, Barbara. Hello, Gail. Hello, Kathy, and people I don't know. Sylvain Leroux is really an extraordinary person. I'm going to let him convince you himself, but I've known him for a long time, and he's grown something very small into something very big and very important. Voila, Sylvain.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Jane. I'm very honored to be here. My name is Sylvain Leroux, and I'm a flute player. Um and I'm very honored to have been invited to participate in the New York Flute Fair. And I would like to thank Jane in particular, and also Deirdre McArdle for having me here. And basically, so I'm going to tell you make a very long story short, to tell you what brought me to start as a flute player, just a normal, regular flute player, to fula flutist, and starting a little music school in Guinea, and all of that. Um, basically, I'm from Montreal, French Canadian, and I don't come from a musical family. Basically, none of my relatives play music that I know of. And but when very young age, I loved music and I wanted to play an instrument. And the first instrument I wanted to play was the guitar. And my big hero when I was a teenager was Jimi Hendrix, and I wanted to be like him. But my approach was more to emulate his creativity rather than try to learn his music or to learn his solos. But eventually, at a certain point, a song came in on the radio that featured the flute, and that made me fall in love with the flute. And also, one of my classmates brought in a flute one day, and I thought it was the most fascinating thing I'd ever seen. So I will play this song for you. I'm sure you'll recognize it. That wasn't verbatim, but an impression, more of an impression of it. And thank you. So from that point on, I wanted to learn the flute, and I was, as a guitarist, I was playing by ear. And so I bought Method Altesse, and I started teaching myself to read music. And my father wasn't really, at that point, I was finishing high school and looking to go study something in college, and I wanted to be a musician. And my father wasn't really convinced. But he was a good sport, and he sent me to the summer camp of the Jeunesse Musicale du Canada, which is quite an extraordinary place, where I went and spent 3 weeks. There was a flute teacher there. His name was Jean Morin, and he was a very nice man. And although I was a beginner, I was really excited about a certain piece of music that I heard some of my other campmates play. And even though it was a little bit beyond my abilities, he saw that it would encourage me to motivate me. And so he let me learn it. So I will play it for you. You'll recognize it too. So I worked really hard, practicing to learn this piece. And when I came back home and played it for my dad, he he said, "Well, okay, maybe there's something there." So so then I proceeded to go to music school, l'École de musique Vincent Lindy in Montreal, which is pretty has a pretty good reputation for a classical music school. And I had a teacher there. His name was Alain Bergeron, and I was very excited to have him as a teacher because he was active on a rock and rock scene in Montreal. He had a big band called Manège, pretty famous at the time, and he also encouraged me to improvise and taught me the blues scale, and also he got me started that way. But other than being a very assiduous flute student, I was not a very good student otherwise. I was very lazy, lackadaisical, and didn't work too hard, and eventually kind of dropped out because I wanted to do jazz, and I started taking jazz lessons with a man named Art Roberts. He's a piano player in Montreal, and then I started playing jazz and also found a certain affinity for jazz. So let me play you a jazz song it's a song by a famous Canadian flute player, Mo Kaufman. So at that point, my father was a little concerned about me, and one of his friends, his son, was a jazz DJ for a radio station in Quebec City. His name is Denis Lelièvre. So I met with Denis, and we spent a day together. Very nice guy, very knowledgeable. And then he recommended the Creative Music Studio, which was, I mean, it still exists. It continues to this day. But it was not quite a music school, but more of a workshop place, more like a camp where you would go and work with pretty famous artists and really work on play their music, be on in their orchestras, and also they had a pretty enlightened approach to music. So I went to Creative Music Studio in the spring of '78 and spent 10 weeks there. And the first teacher I had was Leo Smith, and then the second week we had Don Cherry, and then we had Carla Bley would come and work with us, and Jimmy Dufree would come and work with us. We had Steve Lacy. It goes on. And also a very significant thing that happened to me there was that I discovered the concept of world music, and that really got me fired up. And we also had lots of world music exposure. This first time I heard shakuhachi there, or Tibetan oboes. We had mbira from Zimbabwe. We had bata drums from Cuba, and et cetera, and on and on. First time I heard kora was at Creative Music Studio. So after I went back to Montreal from that session, I was very excited and looking to get involved with some music. And I ran into a group called Kleba that was led by an African musician named Yaya Diallo. And I lobbied them, and I eventually joined the group. And make a long story short, after a couple of years, Yaya was making a record, and he played all the percussions himself, overdubbing, and then I played all the flutes on it. And the record was called Nangape, and turned out it was the first ever African music record produced in Canada. In those days, also there wasn't that much African music available anywhere in the early '80s. So, and that record went around the world, and also worked with some other African musicians in Montreal, a group called Bantamba. There was a kora player that came to Montreal, and we had a trio with a Senegalese bass player and myself playing flute and alto sax. And but life happened in the meantime, and found myself living in Long Island, um, where I got a building super job. And long story, I won't go into details. But but then also being on Long Island, a tremendous amount of jazz going on there. So I would go to jazz clubs and sit in, and in Queens and in Long Island, and also started my own group and blah blah blah. And that went on for. I also played with a lot of Afro-Brazilian dance companies around New York and upstate. But eventually, I ran into a woman. Went back to Montreal for a visit, and I ran into this young lady, and she's a kora player, and she had been motivated to learn the kora from that group that I had participated in like 10 years before. And lo and behold, she offers me the opportunity to go to Guinea to study the fula flute, because they had a pretty famous band at the time, Takaja. They won a Juno, and they were going to make another record, and they'd love to have that flute to be part of their sound. And so I'm like, well, yeah, sure, let's do it. So in 1995, I went and spent a very intense month in Conakry for the first time, studying with a teacher named Kikala Diakite. And that got me started playing fula flute. And so I will play a little fula flute song for you now. I will accompany myself with a loop. It sounds better that way.
Sylvain, did you make that flute you were playing?
Yes, yes, both of them. So I'm going to get to that in a second. Um, so this was kind of there's a long story of the fula flute for me, but it's a little condensed version. And so coming back to New York, I found myself in a very unique position of being the only hula flute player that I could locate in North or even South America. Uh, and so that was great for a while, but then arrived a man is named Bailo Ba, and I met him just as he arrived in New York. And so I started taking lessons with him, and he's great, great virtuoso, fantastic player. And because he was there, I said, well, maybe we should make a record because when I was learning, I couldn't find that much available recordings, too many recordings available of this instrument. And so I thought it deserved a whole record. And so we did that. We got together and we worked on it for about a year. And then it came out in 2002, and the record was called Fula Flute. And that record really hit a home run. It went around the world, got a lot of airplay. It's kind of a cult album now. And but because of that album, eventually people started wanting to learn that instrument, and they would get in touch with me to where can I buy one of those? Where can I get one of those? And and also the problem with buying them from Africa, let's say, is that they're not necessarily tuned to our standards. And of course, if you're going to buy a flute, you'd like to play it with your friends. And so then I started learning to make them and tuning them to our standards and selling them. So I had a bit of a career there going on since 2003, about selling probably 100 flutes around the world by now to Italy, France, Japan, Australia, etc., etc. And but eventually, one day I had a little bit of leisure time, and I was playing around, and there was always a problem because playing with balafon players, because their balafons are in C, but because of the structure of this flute, the key of C is problematic. To play a key of C, you have to play an F flute, and then you have that B flat that and you do a half holes, and the half holes on the fula flute, they're not convincing. It's not like a like a bansuri flute or whatever. The fula flute that wants to be played, you want to close the whole pop, and you want to hear that pop because it's percussive, and so one day I'm looking at the A flat flute that I have. I'm like, oh, well, if I take these two bottom holes there and move them up, and then I could have, I said, yeah, I could have a C major flute. So I did that, and I moved those two holes, and then I'm checking in with the tuner, and I'm like, okay, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. Oh, shoot, I put one more hole in there, and I got the entire chromatic scale. So that's what I did, and I came up with the chromatic tambin, which you can see here. If you want to compare with the fula flute, they're different size flutes, but same thing. So this is a legit fula flute. It's got 3 finger holes, and the chromatic tambin has 6. So in the chromatic tambin can play all the scales, all the keys. So so then I thought, like, let me see if I can patent this, and lo and behold, I patented it. It took about a couple of years, but I got a patent for a tube with 6 holes in it, and so that was quite extraordinary. So now let me demonstrate a little bit this instrument, what it can do. So you can have a lot of fun with it. Play whatever music you want. It sounds great playing legit African Fulani music, or you can play. It's great for jazz, you know, because with the singing and the flute, but then it opens it up to a more meaty. Because this flute takes in the human voice, is designed for it, so the human voice mixes with it very, very strongly, more than the silver, our beloved silver flute. Mostly it has to do with the embouchure, which is quite, I don't know if you can see it so well here, but it's pretty big, and it's got these wings on each side. So the voice goes right in and also produces very strong multiphonics. So this brings me to how this little school happened. Basically, what happened is when I was initially in Guinea, a friend of mine put in my ear the bug to start a music school in Guinea. And I was like, well, that's crazy. Pianos, violins, you know, zillions of teachers, and Guinea is dirt poor, and there's hardly any electricity every day, and so that would be too much. But when I found the chromatic tambin, I thought, well, I can make those out of plastic, and I can give it to the students, and everything is there for them to learn to read music. So I went in Guinea and tried my idea, and the kids loved it. And now, for the last 8 years, we have this little school. It's called L'École Fou La Flûte. It's two projects that merged. Their project is the Centre Tiabala de Guinée, and my idea is the L'École Fou La Flûte, and we merged together. So I'd like to invite them to come and meet us now. So if they can turn themselves on. Tanli, et il faut allumer ton micro. Vous êtes là? Okay. Here they are. So I'd like, do you have the sound on? Ouais, on vous entend, c'est bon. Okay, so here they are, live from Conakry. They're going to play a few songs for you. I'd like to introduce their teacher is Seydou Tanli. He's a piano player from Burkina Faso. He's classically trained and jazz musician also. And this is a class of music literacy class. Bonjour Tanli. So, they're going to play a few songs for us. So take it away. Allez-y.
Beautiful.
Bravo! Alors, je vous présente mes élèves Sidiki, et Souma, et Kouyaté, Fatoumata, et derrière, je ne vois pas très bien là, Aboubacar, Sissé, et c'est qui? Qui est là encore? Ah, Sidouba? Sidouba Sissé. Ok. Alassane Silla, yes. Uh, so now you saw a little bit what's going on, so I'd like to open it up if you have any questions. Anybody would like to say anything?
Would anyone like to ask a question? Deirdre. Unmute.
Okay, yeah, no, I figured it out. I just don't
Okay.
know how to raise my hand with the button or whatever. First of all, I'd like to say that was wonderful, Sylvain. Thank you so much. And but I want to ask a question about how do you fund this? I mean, how financially, how do you keep it afloat? And please
Yes.
discuss that a bit for us.
Excellent question. Over there in Guinea, well, it's a pretty poor place. It's hard to make money there, but the kids do perform for the community, so there's a little bit of money coming in that way. But really, the most significant part of it is what we raise here in the United States, and we have some people in Europe too, also that help us. So mostly between Canada and the U.S. and France. We have we don't have a nonprofit, but we have a nonprofit conduit, so people can donate. And if anybody wants to help us, just go to fulaflute.net, FULAFLUTE.net, and there's a lot to explore on that website. There's a whole history, lots of links, and about this project and about the Fulaflute and the chromatic tambin, and also you can click a button there that will take you to a PayPal website where you can give some money. We encourage people to be sustaining members if you want, I mean, so to speak, not really members, but sustaining donors on a monthly basis. That's very helpful. But also be aware that our money here is probably worth about 100 times more in Guinea. Maybe 100 times is exaggerated, but it's worth quite a bit more. Like $10 here is at least as the buying power of $100 over there, or even more. So even a small donation is very helpful. So to encourage anybody that wants to support us. And also we send periodic messages, and we also have a pretty rich YouTube channel with lots of videos, and we have a couple of CDs out of wonderful music. Thank you.
That's a good point you make about the value, monetary differences, because like while it might be hard for someone to come up with, you know, $20, it might be easy to do $1 a month, you know, and it's something.
Sure.
You know?
50
it doesn't
cents.
matter. I think 50, and anything, yeah, because it's and also the thing that I think would be interesting is to feel that you become a part of this community,
Yes.
a part of your organization.
It's
Well,
yes. Thank you for the question. I appreciate it.
I want to say that I've heard these flutists and their the kids that came before for quite a long time, 5 or 10 years. They're so much better, Sylvain. Their intonation, their rhythm, their ensemble. It's really, they've made huge strides.
Thank you. Well, our oldest students now, one of them is working professionally. He's actually touring Guinea right now. They're very in demand, especially because the flute, they have good training in percussion and singing, but the flute is really unique. Nobody else has that, you know, and that gives them a certain appeal. And this instrument in Guinea is the emotional impact of the instrument in Guinea is tremendous, you know. When you play that for people there, they have an immediate reaction.
Does somebody else have a question? Kathy?
Yes, I have a question. The flute players look like they all have their heads really bent. And I was thinking that maybe if you put a 45-degree PVC between, like, it would be much more comfortable to play.
In Quebec, we say you're preaching for your parish.
Yes, but still, it's like a 40-cent part.
Okay.
Yeah. All you have to do is chop the flute in half and put the joint in. It just, but yeah, sorry.
We'll
We've
we'll,
seen that.
we'll consider it. We'll get together and we'll discuss it.
Someone else have a question? Is it possible, Sylvain, to make a flute that isn't straight? Because it's just a piece of tubing, isn't it? Is it pipe or is it bamboo?
Well, the traditional material is called tambin. It's like it's rattan, you know, and it's very light, but it's not like bamboo at all. Bamboo has all this tension in it, like it breaks easy if you change the humidity. But this is not like that. It's very light. I don't know that you can bend it, but you could definitely make flutes out of plastic. I've made plenty out of plastic, and they're perfectly fine flutes. They play very well, and you can take them out in the rain.
You know that Kathy makes these flutes like this for people
Yes, I
with
saw,
shoulder
yes.
and neck
Yes.
issues.
Yes, I saw.
Yeah.
Well, the flute is as I get older, you know, I realize all the slight. I mean, the flute is it's an instrument that will mess your body up a bit, you know. And so as I'm getting older, I see especially all the little things that I need to correct. You know, all my technical problems become more evident, you know, and allow me to fix them so I'm going to be really good in about 10 years.
I have a question.
Yes.
We've been quarantining for the last year here when, you know, those of us involved in larger groups of people who play together haven't really had that chance. How has COVID affected your school? I see everybody's there outside.
Yes. They in Guinea, it hasn't impacted Guinea to the level that, or even Black Africa, I think in general, has not seen such a huge impact that has had on us. They do have mask mandates when they go out. They have curfews. All the, you know, sports and concert events and mass events have been suspended in Guinea right now. Mostly it's very hard to get a visa to go there right now because they don't want to bring sick people that are going to bring the disease there. And but as you can see, it doesn't seem to be. I think nobody that I know has gotten sick there at this point. So you know, it affects them, but not quite as much as affected us.
Someone else? Sylvain, I'd like to just ask you about your performing career when you played with the whole big group with the call and response and the storytellers, and that is that period of your life over, or do you still do that?
It's not over. It's evolving. When I was involved with the Fula Flute Ensemble, we're a very traditional group there, and we did quite a bit. But that's pretty much over. I have a group that used to play at the Zinc Bar. That's the African jazz group, and here and there we get gigs. But right now I'm working on more of a smaller ensemble quartet.
What about that wonderful, very, very tall man who told whole sagas of village history accompanied by instruments?
Yeah, griots, yes.
That was the best thing I ever heard in my whole life. That's so moving.
Thank you. Yeah, well, the griots, it's like nothing we have here. You know, it's you know, there's that debate, nature or nurture, and this is both, because griots, they're born, their parents are in the music and they're in the storytelling. Actually, the art of the griot, the most high-level art of the griot is the art of the word. It's how you turn a phrase. Now you say something much more important than the melody or the singing or the music accompaniment. And it's very ancient, so it's a caste. You have to be born griot. You cannot become griot. You can't go study to be a griot. I mean, you can befriend griots and you can kind of act as a griot, but you know, you have to pay tribute to them if you're going to do that. You know.
Are there griots in Guinea?
Oh yeah, oh
And
yeah.
Do your
Oh, yeah.
students have any exposure to them?
Yes, yes, we have griots who teaches them kora.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm trying to think. I think that's the only one that's teaching at our school. But yeah, there's most of the great musicians in West Africa are griots. You know, like I say, it's nature and nurture. They're born doing that. Their parents are doing that, and their playing ability, their technical and playing ability. They also have this this knowledge of how to stimulate what they call nyama, which is a vital energy. You know, it's like when they sing, when they play, they get you excited. You know, they trigger this kundalini. You know, they tickle your kundalini, and they have this science, they have this knowledge, and it's very, very deep.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yes.
Well, wonderful. Anybody else like to ask? It's just fascinating. You've moved to a new building, Sylvan, is that right?
Jane, there
Are you
is-
have quarters for the
Sorry.
school?
Sorry, Jane, there is one person that wants to ask a question. Rama Kumaran, he has his hand up.
Hi.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, no worries.
Rama, please.
No, there was,
Please.
his hand was up.
Hi,
Yes.
thank you so much for your presentation, Sylvain. I'd like to know, did you have any particular difficulties at the beginning of starting your school? I'd love to hear about the beginning of that.
Well, I wasn't focused on starting a school. I had this idea of teaching music literacy based on the chromatic flute. So my idea was to try that, see if that could work. So I went and somebody introduced me to this group of people, and they allowed me to try it with their students. And the students took to it right away. And as you flute players know, when you start playing flute, you get headaches and you get dizzy, and it's quite unpleasant. And I was worried maybe the kids, they're not going to overcome that, but that wasn't a problem at all. They just went crazy for the flute. And little by little, it evolved into, it became, you know, to really achieve my goal would take a very sustained effort of chromatic tambin literacy lessons, like on a daily basis for years, for them to get to read and write music, which I cannot afford to do personally at this point. And also I would need to train other people playing chromatic tambin. Right now there's me and there's a few other people that are playing it, but not that many. So there's no really qualified teachers. And but in the meantime, in my absence, I recruited 2 teachers. One, one of the greatest flute players of Guinea, Mamadi Mansari, has been teaching him for 5 years. So they got the real traditional repertoire, and also a Fulani flute teacher, because there's 2 styles of flute playing. So they're getting all this flute. And then my friend Tanli is teaching him some music literacy based, you know, on using the chromatic tambin. So I don't know if I really answered your question there.
No, that's all information that's really valuable. Thank you.
Thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
Well, we will try to put, or maybe you did in the chat already, the how to donate to Fula Flute, because I think people are thrilled by your presentation and would like to help.
Sure, I'll put that.
I put the website in. Yeah, I did put the website in.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
just go to fulaflute.net. It's very clear. There's a button, a big green button at the bottom of the page. You can't miss it.
Thank you, Silva. It's really moving. It's great what you do.
Thank
think
you.
we
I
all-
really appreciate it.
all
I'm
love
very, very honored. Thank you for
I
coming.
think
Thank you.
that's the end of our session.
Okay.
See you. Bye-bye.
right. Bye. Love you.